So let's go ahead and fire up an instance of Google Apps for the very first time. And this is where we're going to start dealing with the first question, which is a big one, which is how you're going to operate with various types of domains. I'm in Chrome, and one of the cool things I learned the other day with Chrome is if you want to be simultaneously running a bunch of different Google Apps accounts, you can go to Chrome and open a new incognito window. And an incognito window is Google's way of putting all of your cookies and history in a sandbox so that it's can't be seen elsewhere by other browser elements and is deleted as soon as you go offline. Since I'm already logged into Google Apps using my Chrome browser, I'm going to open a new incognito window just to show you what a clean Google Apps installation process looks like. So if I go to www.google.com/a, it will take me to the Google Apps for Business website. And the very first thing that they are interested in funneling you towards doing is signing up for the Premier Edition. So if I just go straight to see details and pricing, it will move me along the way towards purchasing the $50 per user account per year business grade Premier Edition. We're not going to do that in this particular class session. What we're going to do is go to the Apps Edition drop box and hit Standard. And Standard is the way to get started with Google Apps for free, using up to 50 user accounts. And this has a nice little comparison between Standard and Premier Editions. And I won't go through it right now, but it's definitely something that we'll hit on throughout the course. Now that we know that we want to get our Coffee Kooks online with Google Apps, we can click on Get Started. And the very first question that they ask you is whether to use an existing domain name or whether you want to purchase a domain name. I'm going to, in this particular section, go through both of those forks. The easiest way is to buy a domain name right on the spot here through Google. So if you click over here on I want to buy a domain name, I'll just type in a dummy domain name, mikescrazydomain.com, which it says is available. And I can continue on with the registration. And what ends up happening here, it's just like buying anything else online. I have a terms of service document that I click through. I give it my name and my credit card number, and it will take me onto a $10 per year web domain account, giving me mikescrazydomain.com. The coffeekooks.com account that we're going to be playing around with throughout the course of this class is something that I purchased using this means. And this is ideal because Google does all of the domain name coordination under the hood for you. And after you go through that process of just checking out or purchasing your new domain name, you end up at a window like this. One of the reasons why we didn't just do this in real time for you, we thought we would. Sometimes it takes 10 or 30 minutes or an hour to actually make all the parts work. So here is where I've ended up at coffeekooks.com. And if I just go to, for example, mail.coffeekooks.com, it will take me straight to the Gmail service for Coffee Kooks that I just purchased, that I just got started through my Google Apps standard install. And here you can see all the cool people who are already emailing about collaboration. So that's really exciting. You'll also notice that it actually redirected to mail.google.com/a/coffeekooks.com. And the same thing happens if I go to, calendar.coffeekooks. it will redirect to Google's hosted calendar service. It's not a big deal. It doesn't actually do this when you're dealing with websites, and this is just, kind of an annoyance, or it may or may not be an annoyance to you, but it does actually redirect from the that domain to a google.com domain. If I ever want to go back and change the settings on the domain that I've just purchased through Google, I can click on Domain Settings. Oh, it looks like I timed out. I'm going to use my password manager to fill in my password again. So if I start at the dashboard, I can click on Domain Settings, and then on Domain Names, and then on Advanced DNS Settings, and this will take me to a DNS console. Whoops. Actually, that last page I just went through very quickly because it flashed the password for my DNS console, which I don't necessarily need for you to see. Or there's one of you out there who would be malicious and mess with my domain name. And if I type in my domain and password, it takes me to this handy dandy. If you have any experience doing web development, you've probably seen something like this. It has calendar, docs, mail as the CNames that are baked into your domain name system that let your domain name system know that when somebody types in calendar.coffeekooks.com, it will redirect to ghs.google.com, which is sort of the catch-all web address for Google Apps redirects. So I'm starting to drop a couple of key terms here. And instead of actually dealing with Coffee Kooks, let's look at the alternative situation where you show up to Google Apps with your own domain name, which was the case for me because I have a michaelmilton.net domain name. And when I wanted to get online, I'm going to show you a few of the things that I had to do. So if I just go to www.google.com/a, and get rid of this coffeekooks.com, it will take me to the Google Apps for Business again, and I'll just go to Standard. We've already seen this, and then click on Get Started. And here I am. I want to use an existing domain name. Now, typically you're going to be an administrator. You are going to own or control this domain, and in this case, you would enter your domain name here. So let's just type in michaelmilton.net, and it's probably going to tell me that it's already been registered with Google Apps. Actually, I don't have a blank domain name set up that hasn't been. Let's just type in cnn.com and see what happens. We're going to switch back over to my domain in a second. So cnn.com has a Google Apps install also. So we'll just forget about that. But what's going to happen when you already have a domain name and you enter it into Google Apps and say that you want to coordinate Google Apps with that domain? It will take you through a process where it asks you to enter in all of those records for CNAME and for MX, and I'll define those more in just a moment. That you just saw for the Coffee Kooks domain, which I set up. So I purchased my michaelmilton.net domain through GoDaddy. Let me find my window here. And when you're setting up coordinating your own personal domain, you'll probably end up getting to a domain manager that looks something like this. It'll look exactly like this if you already have if you have a GoDaddy hosted domain name. But what you need to do is get inside of your dashboard and link each of the individual services inside of Google Apps to CNAME entries in your domain manager. Now, a CNAME stands for canonical name, and it just refers to that third level of calendar.michaelmilton.net. And as I've said a moment ago, when I type in calendar.michaelmilton.net, the domain manager is pinged, and the Cname entry tells the browser to redirect that request to Google servers where a michaelmilton.net calendar application has been hosted. So I've actually already done the hosting for the CNames for calendar and for docs and for a couple of other entries. This particular entry right here, this Google FFFF8004 EC1B, that's the very first CName that they'll want you to set up. That is kind of a esoteric CName that they use to verify that you actually do have ownership over your domain. And so now, because this is set up, I can go to Firefox, for example, and type in calendar.michaelmilton.net, and it sends me to a Google Calendar logon for michaelmilton.net, but I don't have an entry for mail.michaelmilton.net. Whoops. And so when I enter in that particular element, or that particular web address, it says server not found, because the domain name doesn't know how to deal with that. So what I would do for that particular, and I'll show you how this also checks out on the Google Apps side in a moment, is I could add a Cname record, an alias name for mail, and that will point to host ghs.google.com, and click OK. Oh, I need to log back into GoDaddy. And try that, add a new Cname record again. And so now it says it's successfully created. Sometimes it takes a second to actually update so that I can type in mail.michaelmilton.net. Let's see if it works. I think it'll take a couple of minutes to update the servers. Perhaps we can come back to it. But if I look at these entries from the perspective of my Google Apps installation, I can type in www.google.com/a/michaelmilton.net, and google.com/a/your domain name is the way that you get to your dashboard. I can log in for my Google Apps account. And what you see on your dashboard, let me make this go away real quick. When you look at each one of your individual settings, is how they're set to specific web addresses that you've already specified. So I have Google Apps configured so that docs.michaelmilton.net is the address that you would type in order to get to Google Docs inside of the Google Apps. That's hosted for michaelmilton.net. And I can see one of the reasons why email didn't work a moment ago, even though I created the Cname entry, was because I actually don't have the dashboard configured to be accepting mail.michaelmilton.net as the email address. It's still configured to mail.google.com/a/michaelmilton.net. So if I click on email, I can scroll down here. Actually, it's not right here. It's actually at the top. I can do change URL, and this is just general Gmail settings. And I can switch from this current sort of long and cumbersome email address to mail.michaelmilton.net. And it says to enable your custom URLs, you must create a Cname record with your domain host. We just did that. So I can click on continue. And this particular, my Google Apps installation knows that I have a GoDaddy domain name service. I'll show you in a second how to figure out how to make this work with other services besides GoDaddy. But this basically gives you the step-by-step details for how to get your CNAME setting correct for mail, which we just did. So I don't need to talk through that, and I can click on I've completed these steps. And so when I clicked on it, I have completed these steps. It actually went through. It actually verified that with the domain name system itself, and it didn't give me an error because I configured the CNAME correctly. And so if I copy this particular email address and let me type in mail.michaelmilton.net into my address bar of my browser, well, it still hasn't uploaded the domain name service, so it's not working yet. But probably in an hour or two, it'll definitely work. But those basically are the steps that you need to go to in order to get each individual service configured to a domain name that you've already showed up with. On the Google Apps side, you need to tell Google Apps what your domain name is so that it knows to link to it. And on the side of your domain name system, you need to create the CNAME entries that will enable your people who are surfing to your website to get redirected back to Google. And that's one, you're probably seeing one of the reasons why I said it's the easiest if you are showing up without a domain name that you've created, and you can just purchase it through Google and have Google manage it all individually on its own, as opposed to having to get inside of your domain name system and configure each service individually. Typically, if you're in a business situation, you're already going to have a domain name of some sort. So hopefully you or your system administrator is somewhat familiar with how to get inside of that system. If you aren't, Google actually has pretty extensive help documents. You can just type in Google Apps CNAME, and it'll show you how it has a documentation on how to create Cname records for a large variety of domain hosts. GoDaddy is at the very top because GoDaddy is very common. But regardless of what specific host you've used, it has the mechanics, the details of how to get your Cname record set optimally for linking to your Google Apps installation. So let me make sure that I've hit everything I wanted to hit in that particular subsection of the presentation. And then I think we can, I forgot to mention, something very similar to the CNAME entry is the MX entry. And the MX entry is sort of like, the MX entry is to email what the CNAME entry is to websites. So if I type into my web address, into my address bar on my browser, mail.coffeegeeks.com, the CNAME entry will redirect my browser to the Google servers. But if I send an email to michael@coffeekooks.com, the MX entry inside of my domain name is what is used to route the email appropriately. And I'll just show you real quick inside of my, I have so many windows open, I need to start closing them. Inside of my GoDaddy account, underneath the CNAMEs, I have these MXs, MX entries, and what MX does is just what I said it does. And there's a whole bunch of different MX entries, and these specific addresses are inside of the help documentation. So if you just search for Google Apps MX, then you'll find the specific entries that you're looking at right here that you need in order to configure your domain name to your domain manager to route emails appropriately into your Google Apps installation. So that I've probably hopefully I've answered some questions and sparked quite a few more. This is probably the most technically elaborate thing that we're going to do in the entire session. So why don't you let me know what it is that I need to emphasize or re-explain.
Well, I have a question. Actually, I'd like
go
to
into in greater
combine a
detail.
couple of questions from GoToWebinar with a question of my own. In that, as a Google Docs user, I just log into my Gmail account and I create new documents. And so all these steps that you've done tie this into a domain name. How does that? Can you explain more about the relationship between a domain name, what you're showing here, and the Google applications?
Sure. There's a few. That's a really excellent question, and I wish I think that's probably worth its own sort of section. Why is it that you would go to all this trouble to link your domain to an installation of Google Apps versus just creating your own Google account and using Docs? There are a few. Two things immediately come to mind. The first one is that the Google Apps actually has new stuff rolled out to it in a much more conservative way than the other Google applications do. And if you're working inside of a business, you really don't want to get screwed up because, for example, Priority Inbox was rolled out, or Wave, or Buzz, or one of these other pieces of software that Google has, that may or may not work out when Google releases them. What actually ends up inside the specific software in the Google Apps installations is much more conservative. They don't roll out that kind of stuff unless they are fairly sure that it's going to be useful to you and that it's going to be stable for you and that it doesn't disrupt your workflow. And in fact, within inside of I probably should close a bunch of windows here. Well, let me just pop back to the dashboard real quick. There's actually a way to control how quickly, I think it's right here. Yes. So if you go to the domain settings area of Google Apps, you can control how quickly new services are rolled out to you. You can become very conservative about what you see. So that's one of the first things. People in business are not interested in playing with fun applications. They want to get stuff done, and Google
Is this
Apps
a feature
of
the premium?
The second one is that
just the free.
I'm sorry. No. I'm not right now. I'm actually looking. I do not have premium activated for the Coffee Kooks account yet. So we're just looking at the dashboard for the standard installation, the free installation. And so if I want to, I can uncheck these boxes for automatically add new services and enable pre-release features if I want to. And this is just something that would be more applicable in a business context than for an individual context. So actually probably something that would have more day-to-day impact on you if you use Google Apps as opposed to just having everybody using vanilla Google accounts, is that you can really fine-tune access controls. And we're going to deal with access controls on a service-by-service basis. But basically, if I want to have files that everyone in my company can see, but that nobody outside of my company can see, then I definitely want to use Google Apps. I mean, Google Apps ties that access control to a domain rather than tying it to a long list of individual people. So, for example, if I have a document that I only want people in my company to see, I can tie that to the domain, and I may add or delete users, as time goes by. But it won't matter because anyone inside of my company will always be able to look at that document, and nobody outside of it will. It's the same thing with Google Sites. I'll show you in a couple of minutes with Google Sites. We're going to be allowing the world to look at the Coffee Kooks website as we're collaborating on it. But if we wanted to keep it in a purely internal basis, it would be very easy to restrict access to that site to members of the coffeekooks.com domain, which again could be added to or removed from. You can also restrict just plain old Google Sites to a list of people that you want to use. But it's much more elegant and much more integrated when it comes to just using it inside of Google Apps. So I guess, okay, two more reasons, and then I'll move on to the next question. Another reason is just pure branding. Like if you want to have, individual domain name branded emails, or, you want to be branded to a particular website, that's a very valuable service that Google Apps offers. And when it comes to the Premier features, and when it comes to Marketplace, which we'll also talk about in our 5th session, there's all sorts of functionalities that you can bolt on to a Google Apps installation that are more advanced, especially for business purposes, than what you would get if you were just a plain vanilla account, a vanilla Google account user. If I want to get rid of QuickBooks and have my general ledger be inside of Google Apps, inside the Marketplace, there's an app that allows me to keep my general ledger inside of my Google Apps installation. So there's just, it's on first glance, it's a perfectly great question, because the services basically look the same. So what does attaching your domain name do that really changes things? But when you look at the details of all the service offerings, I think for work groups
almost a
or
follow-on
businesses,
question
it's
from
a very
Philip and
compelling
GoToWebinar. How
upgrade.
does using my own domain affect my website?
Well, that's actually what's really cool. If you go to michaelmilton.net, whoops, of course I can't even type in my own domain name. I'll just go through Google. Okay, what you'll see is, hopefully it'll come up soon. GoDaddy's actually been kind of slow lately. Hopefully, there you go. This is my blog, and this is a WordPress blog, and its WordPress blog is hosted on GoDaddy's servers. And basically, when somebody types in michaelmilton.net or www.michaelmilton.net, then it displays this blog. But if you were to type in docs.michaelmilton.net, instead of fetching the blog from WordPress on my GoDaddy servers, it would actually redirect you to Google, where the Google Apps installation is. So as long as there are no naming conflicts between the third level domains that you're using. So if inside of WordPress, for example, I for some reason had decided to create a set of web pages at the address docs.michaelmilton.net, then I would have to, come up with a different name from docs, for those pages in order to integrate, Google Apps and have Google Apps be named docs. But basically, I mean, you can go inside of your domain name system and redirect web traffic to anywhere you want. And in this case, Google Apps plays very nicely with the content that I already have parked at that website.
Is it possible to brand the Google Apps that use your domain name? Like put your own graphics on it?
Sure. Well, it depends on the specific site. So, if I go back to my dashboard here, I think that I have to make sure I know where it is. I think it's under Appearance. So if you go to your dashboard and then Domain Settings and then Appearance, you can add custom logos. And I actually tried to do this while we were all sort of talking, and something weird happened. So I may have just done that too quickly. Pardon me. So by default, you get these logos that are Google branded. But you can have your own custom header logo. So, and then of course you can also have different colors for your sign-in box. Now, sites, which we're going to get to in a moment, is a completely different beast. I mean, you can create a website with sites that, I mean, of course, doesn't have any sort of Google branding on it at all. It's all of your own branding. But that's just sort of the difference between you're not going to be quite as concerned with the web interface you present to your own employees while they're checking their email as you are with the website that you present to the world.